Welcome to Book Your Imagination. My name is Anne. I had a pretty aggressive reading schedule, I guess, set up. Not schedule, but a lot of books for July, and I did pretty good with them. So this is my wrap up. I started with The Traveling Triple C Incorporeal Circus by Alanna McFall. This is the story of Chelsea, who is determined to go from New York to San Francisco for her brother's wedding, and she's not going to let a little thing like being dead stop her. She's joined by Carmen, another ghost, and Cindrica, who is a human who can see ghosts, but she's mute, so they have to communicate through sign language. I really loved this book, and I gave it 5 stars. I interviewed Alanna last weekend, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the end of this. It was its own adventure. The next book I read was Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This is the story of a librarian, Elizabeth, and all librarians know that sorcerers are evil. In Elizabeth's world, books are alive. She mentions that the first time she saw a book that didn't move, she thought it had died. Someone is releasing all of the very worst grimoires from the great libraries into the world, and Elizabeth's attempt to intervene casts her as a suspect. So the only way that she can prove her innocence and find the true culprit is with the help of a sorcerer. So this is a fantasy romance, heavy on the fantasy part and light on the romance, but it's still definitely there. I really liked the book. I gave it 4 stars. The next book I talked about in my July TBR is Wrecked by Joe Ide. This is an IQ novel. IQ is the nickname of our protagonist, Isaiah, who is a genius and a private detective in a gang-controlled area in Long Beach, California. In this story, a young woman named Grace, who IQ is attracted to, hires him to help her find her mother, who's been missing for 10 years. Should be easy for a genius, right? No, it turns out that some of the worst former military from Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq are also looking for Grace's mother. So I really want to finish this wrap up so I can get back to reading the story. It's really good. Next is Furyborn by Claire Legrande. I DNF'd this book. The first chapter really grabbed me and pulled me in. It was very compelling. The second chapter was 2 years in the past. The third chapter was 1,000 years in the future. The fourth chapter was back to 2 years in the past. And that first chapter that really drew me in was nowhere in sight. So it was just getting a little bit too complicated, so I put it down. It's probably a really good book. I mean, the writing was excellent. It was just a little bit too complicated. So I may or may not ever come back to this, but I for sure did not read it this month. Next, 99% Mine by Sally Thorne. I did a full review on this if you want to watch it. This is a contemporary romance, but don't let this cover fool you. The woman on this cover is not the woman in the story. In the story, the woman wears biker boots, tank top, she has a military short haircut, and a nipple ring. But I still liked the story. It was a 4-star read for me. The next book I mentioned in my TBR is The Opposite of Always, and that unfortunately got checked back into the library before I could get to it. So, another time. Next is A Question of Holmes by Brittany Cavallaro. This is the 4th book in the Charlotte Holmes series. I have had some issues with the endings on the 2nd and the 3rd book. I felt like the stories were really well written, but the endings just fell apart. But this story was cohesive from beginning to end, and I absolutely loved it. In this story, Charlotte is really evaluating her life and questioning her decisions. She's trying to work on herself and become a better person and work on her relationship with Jamie. And she's helping the police try to solve a murder. So I really loved it. 4 stars. Those are all the books I read. Last weekend, I interviewed Alanna McFall for this channel. We had a great conversation. It was about 2 hours long, and then when I went to turn the camera off, it wasn't running. So I'm like, okay, let's see what we got. I turn it on, 6 minutes. 6 minutes. I just like, oh my gosh, my heart fell. I was so embarrassed. Alanna has graciously agreed to come back to do it again this weekend. So I get home Saturday night, I am pretty despondent, and Sunday I'm like, I have to get out and do something. So I had just bought a new lens. It was used, but new to me, lens for my camera. So I took my camera down to Fisherman's Wharf and I'm taking pictures, and then on the way home I stopped at an Italian restaurant and had dinner. So I was feeling pretty good by the time I got home, and I thought I got a lot of really good pictures. So I was downloading them onto my computer, and it's taking a really long time. And as I'm looking at what's coming up, the whole interview was actually filmed, and the camera just showed it as one file for 6 minutes, but it was multiple 6-minute files. It was kind of weird. I've never seen it do that before. And I got the entire interview, but I had decided at the end of the interview it would be fun if she did the rapid fire book tag, and that's where it broke off. So we didn't get that. We didn't get the drawing. She's still going to come by this weekend, and we're going to do, I can't have her do the same rapid fire book tag because now she knows all the questions. She'll be prepared with the answers. So I have to pick a new book tag for that and do the drawing, then editing, and the interview will go up. So I'm pretty excited about it. She's an extremely interesting woman, and I loved hearing her take on the book, on the plays, on writing, and everything. So I think it's going to be a really good interview when I pull it together. So that is my July wrap up. Thank you for watching.